Well, hello there, Scott. How are you doing today? Oh my
I'm
gosh,
doing
it's
great.
it's been a long time, right? It's been since the drafts that we've talked. I've
Wow,
missed you.
it's been a
I've
while.
missed your banter, your wonderful NFL knowledge.
I've missed your great counters, your great opinions, your great knowledge as well. It's been a while. My wife has been like, you need to do your podcast again. I don't want to listen to your football crap anymore.
We'll see
So
if she says
it,
that in like 3 weeks, 4 weeks when NFL becomes your life. But yeah, yeah, we definitely missed you at our home league draft at the Gridiron draft that we have every year. I know you couldn't make it. You got a lot of stuff going on. But you did draft a team, and we can talk about that as the year progresses. We both put some time and effort into our teams. But other than that, how are you doing? How are things right now?
things are good, man. Things are great.
Yeah.
I've just been working from home, getting my feet wet in a new role as in sales and stuff. So that's been great. Getting making this house into a home slowly since we
Oh,
moved in last year.
yeah.
And I missed you guys out in Vegas too. It looked like you guys had a great time.
Mhm.
Good house that was able to house everybody in there, and most people drafted a pretty decent team.
Most people. Yes.
Most people.
Yes, absolutely. I think once you sit down and look at people's teams after a draft, there's not a lot like everybody has like a decent team. There's not a lot of people who you can look at after a draft and say, this team's just awful. Like, unless you're in one of those home leagues where just you have somebody that just knows nothing. But, this is our 20th year in our home league in the Gridiron. And most people, we've been through it. We know each other. We know the tendencies. We know how to draft. People aren't going to come out with a terrible team. As the year goes on, these teams will progressively get worse and worse due to injuries and just bonehead, user errors. So I guess we'll just have to see. But yeah, it's good to hear you're doing well. Let's start out with an old timer, a classic. What are you watching right now, Scott?
Ooh. Well, I'll start off with one that you always recommended to me last season was actually to finally watch Ted Lasso.
Hmm.
And you were right. That was a great show. I mean, that was a really good show. And not gonna lie, the premise seemed a little dumb to me to begin with.
Little
It's like,
Hallmark.
oh yeah, a little Hallmark, a little, oh, Americans don't know anything about soccer, ha ha ha. But
Mhm.
it's a great show. And it's a really good show. And the biggest thing is it has balance. In the same episodes, you will be laughing and be heartfelt, almost teared up, and then laugh again, and then have like there's really good moments throughout each episode. I thought they did really good. I'm looking forward to the second season.
Yeah, it's that balance between drama and sports that really
Hmm.
brings it all together. And there's not like a ton of network soccer shows.
Hmm.
So that's what was good to me was you get that European soccer feel. I mean, that's the whole premise of the show with the, American twist to it. So yeah, I like that show. Anything else you're watching?
The other one main I'm watching right now is I just finished watching The Sandman on
Really?
Netflix. That was pretty good. I was pretty skeptical at first, and it looked kind of weird, and I was like, okay, let's watch one episode, and I got pretty intrigued. It hooks you. The actor that plays the Sandman is really good, and it's a different style of show. I feel like that
Is
I
it just
wasn't
one
expecting.
season?
It is just one season right now. They have like it ends and there's like one extra episode. But I think they already got renewed for a second season right now.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
I'll definitely have to check it out, add it to the list. There's a million things to watch right now. I'm a nerd and I put different days of the week. I have schedules on my iPhone on the calendar of shit I have to watch for that day. So there is stuff on the daily, but I think right now, as of now, Mondays and Fridays are free, at least till Monday Night Football, right?
Oh, well, of
So
course. Yeah. Well,
yeah.
that's good time management skills you have there. That's very important.
Well,
Uh,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I'm when I tell you there's a shit ton of stuff to watch, there's a shit ton of stuff to watch. Right now, I'm sure I don't know if you've dug into it, but Game of Thrones on Sundays.
Oh yeah. Oh
You've
yeah.
seen the first
I've been
few?
enjoying it. Oh yeah.
He raises up the Game of Thrones mug for those of you who can't see it. By the way, we are going to have video. That if you want to watch this, I'll probably post it on Twitch and maybe YouTube if I can get that loaded up. But if you want to see, Scott raise up his Game of Thrones cup and see our banter in live action instead of just listening. Um, yeah, so Game of Thrones Thursday, She-Hulk. I don't know if you've dove into
Hmm.
She-Hulk yet, Attorney at Law.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
that's a
It's been good
great
so far.
show. Yeah, it's doing pretty good. And I'm going with an oldie that I never got around to see, but Peaky Blinders. Stephanie's really into it. She
Hmm.
loves that early 20th century style gangster, like back and forth that they have, and it is actually a really good show. It really keeps you on the edge of your seat. So yeah, and you know, with Hard Knocks and you got not Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings starting on Thursday, tomorrow.
Hmm.
You got a new Star Wars series coming up. There's just a ton of stuff that we're gonna have to be watching this month. And not to mention, I don't know if you've heard this, but a week from Thursday, football starts. Yeah,
Oh,
game
that
one.
sounds pretty interesting. That's what I'm here for. I'm not gonna lie.
Right. Yes. Do you have any like week one traditions that you do like for that first game? Because it's usually like that Super Bowl team against a budding team that came out of the same division. Is there anything that you look forward to for that day?
I just like getting back into the feeling of it all, because the first game is usually on a Thursday night, so it is, technically a work night or a school night, but it's just getting that feeling back, watching the pregame, watching them warm up, and then having just live tackling and actual game planning. I'm just really excited. I don't have any big traditions that I do for the first game, just because the Steelers haven't been in the first game in a little while, but
Hmm.
uh, just like I said, I think more first tradition that first Sunday of like all day football
Oh yeah.
for me is a big tradition of, hopefully meeting up with you and some of the other
Hmm.
guys here around town and just really enjoying from noon to night, all the games.
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully in the first like hour or two, you're just as excited as you were for the previous month since we've drafted, since you've had these players. Because I know there's sometimes that those noon games on the week one can absolutely break your heart. Thinking I waited so long for this. I waited so long so my quarterback could fumble twice and throw a pick on a long drive. So yeah, I mean, I hear you. I just get really excited. I get giddy for that first game. I usually gamble on it. I put way too much on that whatever team I favor in that game. And whenever somebody makes a tackle, I'm like, I know somebody owns that player. We run a lot of IDP leagues, so I go out and look, who has a point, who got a point there, who got a point there. Obviously, as the season progresses, you don't care as much. You're like, okay, yeah, this person got another point. But it's like, oh my gosh, these players are actually getting points and our season has started. It gets very exciting. And so I'm definitely looking forward to that and looking forward to uh, every Thursday, Sunday, and Monday having football until 2023. That's great. It's my favorite part of the year. I'm so pumped up for it. Um, but right now, let's talk about right now. It's kind of a dead zone. Preseason's over, right? There's not really much football. There's a few blurbs here and there.
It's
People have been
blurb
re
season.
It's blurb season. People have been released or traded
Mhm.
as of today. What's your big thing for these 2 weeks? Yeah, now it's down to about a week and a half. What's your strategy for these 2 weeks?
In real life, I guess getting ready for the first weekend of football, making sure I don't have anything, chores or stupid little things to do around the house. Make sure
Hmm.
I have free Sunday, and I'm not putting anything off. So I try to get that done here this next weekend. And fantasy wise, I'm just trying not to make too many moves because
Yep.
we have a limited 30 moves for our roster for the whole season. And so making too many moves right now. We spoke earlier in our group chat. Our other um, team member said Trevor was saying you could find a lot of great defensive players right now in this time.
Hmm.
While that is true, there's a lot of them out there. You don't know who they are yet.
True.
They've got to get out there and play. You've got to see at least week one of, you know, who's this badass guy that was sitting behind a star. Now the star got traded or got retired, and literally nobody knows about him until he hits the field week one, basically.
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
know, like there's going to be a few of those guys. I think after that, that's when I'd make some more moves. But right now, these weeks, like I said, I'm just trying not to make too many moves. I've been getting a lot of trade offers. I've stayed off a lot of trade offers just because I like my team right now. And I just want to see him play like 1 week. Just get
Yep.
out there and just show me what you could do, and then we'll talk about trades.
No,
What about you?
I agree. I have really, I have a few more drafts to go this weekend, just to finish up with a few more, friends and work leagues. But I have put a lot of time into rankings, for different positions. I've put a lot of time into studying, news and notes and watching preseason games and all this sort of stuff. I feel like we've already had like a little mini season already with trading and whatnot. It's time to let my brain like rest, I think, for a little bit and just kind of like not sit there and analyze and just say, hey, I think my team's ready. I think that we're ready to go. I think we're good for week one. This is the best. I'm sure all NFL players are just sitting there waiting for week one. They're not going to get injured. They're not going to, do anything, hopefully. So you just kind of want to get some time in with the family. Don't think about football all that much, even though we're doing a podcast and sitting here. Don't overreact to every blurb, every news article that comes out because there is going to be something, well, it looks like this guy's going to get the majority of the carries, or he's going to get the goal line work, or, he's going to be looking to this receiver early and often. Don't overreact to that sort of stuff. Just kind of go with your gut and go with what's, what was in your heart when you drafted, and just get ready for the season because there's a long season ahead of you. And if you take these 2 weeks and just rack your brain trying to get ready for week one, you'll never survive for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I
So,
think that's a smart approach.
yeah,
Relax and just kind of get ready for the season. We've got a long season coming up, so just kind of spend some time with your family, you know, do a couple other details, but don't stress yourself too much. I think that's exactly right.
yeah, absolutely. Um, so in these past few weeks, we usually draft pretty early in our home leagues, and there's a lot of leagues that are out there that draft real early, whether it be in early August or late July. And then the bulk of people are doing it in Labor Day weekend or this last weekend. We've had about a month to sit there and stare at our players and really look at other people's teams and see what we want, see if we're satisfied with what we have. So we've been trading a lot. I think there's been total like 8 trades involved. I like to trade a lot. A lot of times I draft based on, there's some leagues that don't allow trading. Ours is very encouraged. Uh,
There's leagues
you
that
know,
don't allow trading.
there's
Jesus,
leagues that don't allow trading.
communist Russia. What the hell?
I know. It's gross. But that is not our league. In fact, it's far from our league. We encourage trading. I draft often, knowing that this player is the best value. I just don't like them. And so I know that other people would be attracted to this player. I personally think that I would rather get more value for him. And that's why I draft them. Whether that be right or wrong, I've had 4 trades under my belt from July 31st to August 30th. So what I want you to do is tell me a few things. First, trade strategy. What's your strategy when you look at trading, when you're trading with people? What do you think makes a good trader, and what do you think makes a bad trader? So tell me your strategy first.
So when I'm looking at uh, trading with somebody, I always kind of look at their team and just kind of figure out what their strengths and weaknesses are on a very superficial level. and then from there translate that to who the manager is. And does that translate straight over to what their opinions are of what they think of their players? Do they really think that their strongest players are their strongest players? Because that's not always the case.
Mhm.
And then possibly even with team affiliation too, that could always be a thing. So right there, just kind of give you an understanding of each team based off of that, and then just open communications. To me, that's the biggest thing about a good trader or a bad trader is open communications, figuring out what they want, what they don't want, and just because to me it's a dance.
Yep.
You're barely ever going to get a trade done on the first offer. It's about kind of sending it back and forth. So to me, the biggest thing is open communications.
Yeah.
What about you?
I mean, I agree with you to a certain extent. So I like to not offer what I need as much, but more what I have in excess that I think that other people need. Okay, so if I think that you need a receiver, I'm going to go push a receiver on you. If I think you need a running back, I'm going to go push a running back on you. Um, I try to buy low. The whole point of trading is to not buy somebody at their peak, but more buy somebody who you think's on their way up
Mhm.
and not on their way down. Uh, Utilize free agency. So a lot of times, what will happen will be I'll look at free agency and I'll see somebody I really like,
Mhm.
and I'll say, I could see this person in my starting lineup, and I could take my person that's currently in my starting lineup and help myself elsewhere.
Mhm.
And so a lot of times what you'll see is like you'll see me trade somebody and then immediately make a move and pick up this person and insert them in the slot of where I traded. Sometimes it works out. I mean, you know, sometimes you hit gold and sometimes it's trash and then you have to make up for your mistakes. But I think that being knowledgeable about, what's out there, what's on the free agent wire, and where this player, whoever it might be, fits in the scheme of everybody or in the rankings of everybody at their position really is good for both sides. It really is unfortunate when you're trading with somebody who doesn't know a lot about football or about fantasy football, because what happens is all they know is about what ESPN has told them or what
Mhm.
these rankings have told them. So if you're offering, let's just say an Austin Eckler for a Saquon Barkley, you see the gap in rankings, so you go ahead and take that when maybe it's not all there. Some people might reject trades based on, well, this pundit Matthew Berry or whoever told
Mhm.
me that this person wasn't as good. Um, Another thing for a bad trader, I think, is that they have really, really high asks. Like if you say, I really like this wide receiver 3 on your team or your backup tight end, and they're like, well, I'm looking for your starting running back or swap quarterbacks or something like that. That to me is like, well, you're only going for throat rips. You should absolutely, if you're going to be a good trader, be willing to make the small trade.
Mhm.
The trade that's very minimal that people go, why even bother? Like, what is this? Who cares? Who would want that person for that person? That's dumb or whatever. Those trades I think are very important and tell you who actually is like a good trader. I help you here, you help me here. And really honestly, you can create good relationships with people down the line and saying, hey, I know this person likes to trade in our league. I know
Mhm.
Trevor likes to trade. I know Max likes to trade. I know Chase likes to trade. Those are the people that I'll go to, and I know they can be reasonable to a certain extent. Obviously, sometimes you reach a roadblock, but you can be reasonable and say, those are people that you can go back and forth and reach a middle ground. But yeah, I don't want to go off forever. Sometimes I get a little bit ticked off by some of the trading tactics of some people in different leagues, um, because the people who shut you down after one offer and don't
They get
like you
offended by
said.
the initial offer. That's
Yeah,
what
it's
it is.
offended by the initial offer and they don't have a rebuttal or anything like that.
I think
That's
also you've got to have, kind of like earlier you were saying about, you got to have a decent amount of football knowledge. You also have to have some imagination too. You
yeah.
got to have, be able to see your team and set in a different way.
Hmm.
But we could talk about trades all day. I agree.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's get into the meat of the podcast. Start out with a little section called important or not important. You're going to tell me whether you think this is important or not important and why. Okay, you ready? Tom Brady missed a chunk of the preseason. Is that important or not important?
I think it's slightly more important than people think. Just because he's old, he's getting
Hmm.
older. He hasn't shown his age yet, but now he has to leave training camp for like almost 3 weeks. Like, he's never really done that before. It brings up a lot of questions to me. Is there undisclosed injury, or just plain like body wear and tear that we don't know about, and he needed a break?
Hmm.
Did it? Does he just not have the fire anymore? Is he just not really there anymore to his little "let's go" attitude shit? Like, is it not really there anymore? Is it just kind of like, hey, I showed up, I was supposed to be in Miami with a much better team, but I guess I'm still here in Tampa attitude?
Hmm.
Like, it doesn't say I'm all in, let's go win a Super Bowl, you know?
True.
So it's
True.
it's a little more important to me than people are giving it credit. He's still going to play. You'll still be Tom, but I don't think. I think this might be like the beginning of the real end.
Yeah.
What do
I
you think?
think it's more unimportant. He's had some O-line problems. Obviously, they've had some injuries in the preseason that have caused some alarm. If you get it Brady up the middle, that's been his weakness, his Achilles heel, his whole career. And he's lost a center and I believe a guard thus far this offseason. Um, I don't think Tom Brady's play is going to be uh, lessened by his time away. It might be lessened by age. It might be lessened by the change in talent. As much as we hate on Antonio Brown, I believe he's light years more talented at his age, or was last season, than Julio Jones will be coming into the
Mm-hmm.
season. So I think they took a step back at receiver, and also tight end with Gronk.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so do I think that this in particular, him missing time, whatever the media wants to wake up, whether it's a mass singer, whether it's a divorce, whether it's him having plastic surgery, whether it's all this crazy stuff, uh, I really don't care. All I care about is how it affects football and fantasy and those that depend on Tom Brady. And I really just don't think that time away made any difference. I think if you're going to see a difference in Tom Brady's play this season, it's probably going to be due to the aforementioned things that were just said. How about yesterday's news? Jimmy Garoppolo signed as a backup for the 49ers. Is that important or not important?
It's important to Jimmy. That's
Yeah,
about it.
yeah,
That's really about it. I think the Niners realize that it's better to just sign him to this contract and get rid of the media circus about where's Jimmy going to go, so that they can focus on football. Because there aren't really that many good trading locations for a mediocre quarterback right now, and that's all he is. He's a mediocre quarterback.
yeah,
So it's better to just get rid of the distraction, focus on football, and remember the fact that you had a good quarterback for a while, and every time you made it to the playoffs, he was fucking injured. So have a decent backup is not a terrible thing to do, because Trey Lance still hasn't played a full season yet. Trey Lance has not really gotten hit by NFL players, by NFL linemen and linebackers. I want to see if his bones are made of glass or not. And we don't
mhm,
know that until that happens. So having a backup quarterback that's decent, and I think it was actually a good move for them. It's not that big to the league. It's not a big deal by any means. No, other than Jimmy. Now he's just a placeholder there, I guess. But like I said, there weren't that many good options to trade. They weren't going to get anything for him right now.
So do you think this affects Trey Lance's value at all?
No, no,
No.
not at all. He's been playing great. The same. front office management and head coach that traded up to draft him are still there. So like there's zero risk to him at all. It's like I said, it's just good to have a good backup just in case.
Mhm.
What do you think?
Hypothetical question. Uh, the 49ers are like 3-5, and the reason they're 3-5 is poor quarterback play. Do we see Jimmy in week 9?
Um, I don't see that happening just because of the way the style of offense it is, and Trey Lance can always just fall back on running the ball himself. So I
Mhm.
don't see that necessarily being like all his fault kind of thing. And he's got some great weapons around him, and the system, like I said, the offensive system is very good. So I don't see that happening. If it did, I still don't see them going back to Jimmy. Even if it did, I
Yep.
see them sticking it out with him and trying to make him better, which I think they will. Like I
Yeah,
said, they have a lot of good weapons.
they do. I think that's a really good quarterback situation for sure. I think it's important though. I think that if you're Trey Lance, you did not really want that to happen. I mean, it's like if your ex decided to live with you and your new girlfriend, like it's one of those things where uh
Awkward.
it is kind of awkward where it's like I'm taking your job now and you have fun at your new team. And it seems like they were like, you know what, we'd like him to stick around just for in case. And to me, I disagree. I think that if Trey Lance does do poorly throughout the first half of the season, that you could see some Jimmy here and there. And I don't think poorly means that they go 500 or whatever. I think he has a really long leash, but I think that if he bombs, that it could be Jimmy time. Do I think he's a fantasy relevant person right now? No, I don't. I think that wink wink to somebody in our league, if you have him, you should drop him. But I really honestly think that you're right. It was probably the best decision for him, for Jimmy, because there was no starting spot. It reminds me a lot of Trubisky, where it's like you may be the 33rd best quarterback in the league. Jimmy might be the 33rd best quarterback in the league, the best backup right now. And the moment a starting spot is open, he may be the best option for that. It won't be this year. He has no trade clause, so they'd have to trade him to somebody that he obviously agrees to. But next year, he's on a 1-year contract. I would not be surprised if the Buccaneers come and call in, or one of these other
Carolina
teams.
Panthers.
Oh,
I'm just
I
saying
thought
they
you'd
don't
say
really have a
that.
quarterback right now. So like,
Yeah.
I thought they were going to be the number ones, but then they went and wasted all their time and money on Baker. But
Well, so Jimmy also had some very badly timed surgery.
yeah, that was the
Uh,
biggest thing. Yeah.
so yeah, and he wasn't, so it's a totally different situation. But yeah, no, I think that Jimmy signed as a backup is a little bit alarming to Trey Lance owners, and nothing too serious to worry about, but something to keep your eye on. How about Baltimore today signed Kenyon Drake? Does that alarm you for J.K. Dobbins owners?
Um, Not so much. Just because if they just signed him now and he caught on kind of late, Kenyon Drake really hasn't been good for a few years now. And they already have other running backs. Honestly, I'd be more worried about just Lamar running it himself than another running back showing up in the running back room there. But I don't think it's that big of a deal. No one's going to pick him up, and he's not going to be fantasy relevant.
I I got to disagree with you there. So, well, I don't want to say fantasy relevant or not fantasy relevant, mind you. So in a lot of my leagues, if you get to the later rounds with running backs, it becomes like an absolute wasteland. I'm talking like in the J.D. McKissick, Naheem Hines, one down there in like the 30s of running backs where you're just really scrambling to find that anything that you can get. Mike Davis, I think, will get a lot of the early work for Baltimore, or was until this signing. J.K. Dobbins will be out there. It's just yet to be seen. There's been some news that J.K. Dobbins may not start the year 100% healthy. may not get, and if he does, he's not going to get 100% of the workload. Obviously, they're going to try to ease him back in. I mean, he's coming off an ACL injury and he's a young guy. I mean, eventually, by mid-year, I think he'll be 100%. But right now, J.K. Dobbins is not going to get 100% of the work. So in comes Mike Davis, who's been a reliable, you know, he pretty much is Gus Edwards, who is not healthy right now for the Ravens. Early down guy, can get, 3 to 5 yards carry, but gets that goal line work, and sometimes can, put up a 10 or 15 spot as your RB2 or flex. I think that's what Kenyon Drake being signed really threatens that spot. And so while I think J.K. Dobbins' spot is pretty much set in stone in that he'll get 50% of the work for the first 3 or 4 weeks, and week 5 it'll be all his. I think for those first 3 or 4 weeks, anybody that was depending on Mike Davis has to kind of step back and question, like, should I pick up Kenyon Drake? I think that if you're struggling for a running back at this point right now, Kenyon Drake can absolutely carve out a role, even with J.K. Dobbins, if he comes out and just blows people out of the water. If Kenyon Drake comes out and has like a 100-yard, 2-touchdown game in the first week or two, I would not doubt we see Kenyon Drake in week 10 getting half the carries. So something to keep your eye on. The Raiders were obviously pretty low on him. They didn't want to keep him around with Josh Jacobs. But yeah, it's
That's
kind of,
concerning. If the Raiders have a low
yeah,
opinion of you, I mean, the Raiders have some of the worst football opinions in the league.
true,
They draft first round draft picks, and a year later they're just like, oh, well, that was a bad choice. Get out of here.
true.
So I mean, you got to really take their opinions with a grain of salt.
They just
Also,
drafted
just
Zamir White though, so they want to get Zamir White a lot of work, I guess, with Josh Jacobs. So they thought Drake being the third, we don't want to pay him that kind of money. Yeah, but you're
also
right.
remember though, the Ravens did not pick up Lamar's contract, so he's in a contract year. So and their running offense is an option. So if he has the option to try and improve his stats or hand the ball off, what do you think he's going to do?
Obviously, he's going to pass or run, and I think
I'm
we
just
see a
saying.
lot of
So
that.
it's like, yeah, and it's more than even last year, just because he's on a contract year.
Hmm.
So he's going to keep that ball for himself more often than not, probably especially in the red zone.
Yeah, yeah. You might be right there. How about something that hits close to home? Najee Harris, Liz Frank. Is this important or not important?
That's important, man. That's scary. I mean,
Yeah,
Liz Franks, that's a dirty, nasty word. That's like like what you call me kind of
yeah,
word,
it
like,
is.
because the last one we heard was freaking the king himself, Derrick Henry, was out for the rest of the season with that. So,
Hmm.
and after Najee's year last year with how many carries and touches he had, that's a big concern.
Yeah,
That is definitely a concern. So because now you have 2 weeks. I really do like there's not a week 4 preseason game, so now there's 2 weeks to rest at least. But going into the season, that's definitely something to monitor.
yeah. The one thing I'll take away from that is if he had some kind of injury like that, do you think the Steelers would have even thrown him out there in the third preseason game if he
You have
was
to
struggling?
you have to understand the way Tomlin is. He's very old school mentality. He says, if you can't suit up for practice on Thursday and Friday, you're not playing Sunday. And so
Mm,
for in the preseason, he equates that to a certain amount of snaps. Whether you get it, spread out within 3 games or you do it all in one game, you have to get a certain amount of snaps to show that you're ready to play football. So so he went out and got his snaps. It's just the way he is. And it's the mentality of, like, if you're going to get ready to play football, you have to practice playing football, as opposed to Sean McVay. It's like, if you're my starter, nobody's touching you. Don't even breathe on them. You
right.
don't do anything in preseason.
Yeah.
Going into it, we got Deontay Johnson injured, we got TJ Watt injured, we got Alex Highsmith injured, we got Najee nursing a last Frank, we got the offensive line just looks like dog shit.
You sound
I do
worried.
like I get the idea. I get the idea. It's a very injury prone sport. So it's
Mhm.
tough to watch sometimes, because I watched Najee play like the entire first half in a preseason game. Completely unnecessary.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, true, true. Let's hope, yeah, I mean, you guys have signed some backups there for Najee, and so maybe less work is more work for Najee going forward. Um, I can't quite name them off the top of my head, but yeah, hopefully, Najee's okay going into this first week. I think that this is definitely important, like you said, something to monitor because really honestly, at my first draft of running back rankings, Najee was number one. I mean, just from receiving work and the work on the ground and his workhorse mentality and that offense, I had him at number one. Now, I think as far as running back rank is concerned, I would drop him to 4, maybe 5 around Joe Mixon. And if you pick him, you got to know that this is something that you may have to deal with for the first half of the season.
It just goes back to the like, knock on wood, nothing happens. But if
Right.
something does, it goes back to the what is it, over 250 touches as a running back the
Yep.
next year you get injured. So
Yeah.
just, it's a kind of that bar, that line of just can't overwork them.
True. True. All right, last one for the important, not important. I think you'll like this one. Baker wins the starting job. Is that important or not important?
It is important. It is. Anybody that is a starting quarterback in the NFL is important.
Yes.
He beat out Darnold before Darnold got injured. So that, that's kudos to him. He's done pretty well there, and the Panthers gave him a chance, which was surprising. But everybody makes mistakes. Uh, it's just at the
You
end of the
honestly
day,
think that the Panthers offense is going to be worse than it was last year?
yeah, yeah,
Wow.
oh yeah.
I think you may be in the minority on that one.
So when was the last time Christian McCaffrey was any good?
Well, okay, he's good in his limited time last year.
All
Yes,
right.
in like the four games, his statistics were very
I,
good. I
I'm just
mean,
I'm just saying if Baker Mayfield is not under center of a extremely powerful running offense, and the defense can focus on him, it's going to be a free frenzy, man. Free for all. They're gonna go after him, man. They're gonna smell blood on the water. They're gonna kill him. It's gonna be entertaining to watch. I think that Baker has better third down stats than I previously expected when I looked them up.
mhm,
But when you watch him play, if he is not making, every pass is a play action pass for him, it is just dead in the water. You can't expect him to score a touchdown on a 2-minute drill. You can't expect him to uh, bring you back from being down 20 points. You can't expect him to go 5 wide and complete a pass. I'm sorry. Like if he's not play action pass and checking down to the tight end of the flats, then that's it. That
mm.
that's his whole game. So it'll be entertaining to watch. I think
I
it'll be
mean, you
really good.
said yourself that the third down numbers are better than what you thought. I think that's part of the attraction of Baker is that not that he's going to come and throw. I mean, 2 years ago he was what number quarterback 13. So he was pretty good. Obviously, last year he fell apart and made the Browns move on from him. Whether that was a smart decision or not, it's not for us to name here. But the part of the attraction is not for him to go out and throw 40 touchdowns, but to be clutch and in situations to get the job done and to have that little moxie, that little drive, that little that swagger. And so I think that moving to this offense, having it open up a little bit, if you know that when he was with the Browns, there's a lot of, like you said, play action, running the ball. It's what we've seen to him, dumping off in the flat, cross over the middle. He didn't utilize OBJ very, very well. Obviously, there was fighting there. And so you have this reputation grow of Baker of this running quarterback, not running quarterback, a running game quarterback. So like a game manager that can get the ball down the field, like a Jimmy G perhaps. I think if you open it up, we're going to see a lot of different Baker this year because you open it up and you let him pass. You give him in 3 wide sets. You take some pressure off with Christian McCaffrey. If he fails this year, I will agree with you. I will say, hey, this is Baker's just not the guy. Baker is a career backup. Baker's not somebody that deserves to be first overall. However, I just think he has every opportunity this year to go out and be successful and put numbers on the board and be that high end quarterback too, that we kind of expect him to be.
I agree with that, and that's actually been my problem with him the whole time is that he has always had a position been set up for success with the weapons and offensive line and receivers and running backs and coaches. He has always been in a good position, and he's done like so little with it. Like if he would have gone to the Lions like Jared Goff did last year, and Goff did really well in garbage time, but he did really well. Baker would have just got. I mean, he would have been torn to shreds over there. And like my biggest thing is like you just said, he's a guy that if they open up the offense, maybe push the ball down the field. The shots of OBJ running down the field wide open, and Baker just goes, I can't throw the ball that far, and turns back this way. If that's what you're doing on the field, get the fuck out of here, man. Go home.
Yeah.
Go fuck home. Go pack some groceries. Go be a clerk at a bank. I don't give a shit. But if you see a wide open wide receiver down the field, you can't throw it to him because you're too fucking weak. Then go home.
Yeah.
That's my biggest problem with him, and that's why I think Tyreek Hill is a waste on Miami. Because see that pass to I did the other day. Jesus, he put everything he had into it. Tyreek had to like stop and turn and come back to get it, and I was just like, that is such a waste of talent. Oh man, I wish Brady was there.
I will slightly agree with you there, even though we went from Baker getting the starting job to Tua somehow. No, but I do agree
Lack
that
of arm strength.
lack of arm strength, okay, and somebody that's set up with a bunch of weapons that may or may not utilize them as they want to. I think Baker, a lot of what happened with Baker though had to do with the Browns, just like we talk about how, or some people talk about how Brady's successes were due to a system that he was in, and the Patriots as a whole were just a great team. I think that some of Baker's shortcomings had to do with the Browns' offense and the way they ran their team, and that getting him outside of there will really solidify his legacy, whether it be good or bad. So it's something we're going to have to see, and we're on different spectrums on what we think Baker. As far as the news itself, I don't think it's very important. I think that's not important because I think when they traded for him, they knew he was going to be the starter. Darnold was there. They knew they had him under contract. They wanted him to be the backup, and now he's hurt. So, yeah. So that was the meat, or that's some of the meat. That's important or not important. Now what we're going to do, me and Scott, we're going to sit here and we're going to try to help you, the listener, with your either post or pre-draft needs. Okay, we're going to give you 5 each, 50% Yahoo owned offensive players that might be able to help you week 1, 50% or under. So these are low owned, may or may not be sleepers because they'll help you week 1. We're not going to say they're going to help you week 2 or week 3 or whatever. We're going to do 50 offensive players. I'm set 5 offensive players, and then we're going to do 5 10% or lower owned IDP players that may be able to help you week 1. They may or may not be owned in the Gridiron. I think some of these guys may not be owned, but we'll take turns. Okay, I'll go first. How about that? You cool with
Sounds
that?
good. Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna go with Alec Pierce. He's the third receiver. He's gonna be the slot receiver for the Colts. I believe he's 9% owned. He is 9% owned. Been raved about in camp. So if you're looking for that wide receiver 3, I'm not huge on Matt Ryan. No offense. I know you drafted him as your QB2. I'm not huge on Matt Ryan this year, but I do think that Alec Pierce fits in with a guy that has struggled to throw the ball deep. In his older age. I've watched Matt Ryan in the past few years really struggle to get that deep ball on point. Like you said about Tua, players coming back to the ball, overthrown, just whatever. He just hasn't been there. But I think Matt Ryan can be a very good Phillip Rivers type short game guy to get the pass to the receiver within the 5 to 10 yard mark and let them do something with it. I think Alec Pierce and Michael Pittman, to a certain extent, are those kind of receivers that can do that, that can get the ball in space and get big chunks of yardage with them. So Alex Pierce being so low owned, I think this is a good opportunity to go and pick him up as depth or have him as your wide receiver 3 in desperate situations.
I like it. I like
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
I do agree. I mean, Matt Ryan is definitely on the downturn of his career, but luckily he's in an offense where it's not focused all on him. They've got Jonathan Taylor and a great offensive line, so hopefully he can at least get some stuff done, get the ball to people like Alec Pierce.
Yep. Who you
My
got?
first guy I was going to talk about was actually Kenny Golladay. I know
Mm,
not the most popular guy wide receiver in the room,
not at
but
all.
he will be he will be a wide receiver 1 for a team, and he is very little owned, not even owned in our league. And the Giants defense is pretty terrible. Not to mention how many times that Daniel Jones will and then will turn the ball over this season. They will be down more often than not. So they will have to throw more often than not. That's downgrading Saquon, but it's upgrading Kenny. And you don't need a great quarterback for a good wide receiver. Daniel can throw interceptions and fumbles all day as long as Kenny gets his, and I think he will. There's not much competition in the wide receiver room there either. So
So
somebody's got to get those balls.
yeah, no, okay. So for somebody who's desperate, I agree with you. Because
Oh,
I
we're
think that
going to barely owned here.
we're
So this
going
isn't.
barely owned. And
Yeah.
no, I agree with you. I agree with you because what we're talking about, somebody, Kenny Golladay was like a top 10 receiver coming into the 2020 season. This is 2022, so this is 2 years ago. I'm sorry, yeah, coming in the 2020 season. I mean, he had 1,190 yards and 11 touchdowns in 2019, coming from Stafford. Those are really, really good stats. Obviously, the next year he got hurt, so he only had 338 yards and 2 touchdowns on 32 targets. The next year, he only played in 14 games last year out of 17, but only had 76 targets and did not reach the end zone. So we haven't seen Kenny Golladay be Kenny Golladay since 2019. On the depth chart, on the New York Giants depth chart, he is the number 1 receiver. So I guess the question is, if you think he still has talent, he is going to be showcased in certain points. Like every league has Kadarius Toney owned.
And see, to me, I don't see Kadarius Toney necessarily being that much better. You're still investing in Giants offense. You're still investing on Daniel Jones getting him the ball there. Like I said, I think he has what, like 3 touchdowns last year. So it's like a little
Yeah,
bit better than Kenny Golladay, but it's not blowing my skirt up here.
no,
For a
yeah,
value pick, that's probably somebody just sitting out there on the free agency. I like it.
yeah. No, and I could think of way worse gambles that you could take, but if you are taking literally every single pundit, every single fantasy football expert out there is going to say Kenny Golladay is trash, he's done, it's whatever. So if you are taking Kenny Golladay, you are trying to prove to the world that you know more about this than anyone else, and you are taking Kenny Golladay against the world. I like it. I don't mind it. But yeah, that's a risk. It for sure is a risk. All right, next up, I'm going to take a kicker, if you don't mind. He's not owned in a lot of leagues here, and some leagues don't even do kickers. Will Lutz, who was the number 1 kicker, I believe, like 3 or 4 years ago. Will Lutz has been kicking for a while. He is 8% owned. So in leagues with kickers, he's probably outside the top 14. I saw him sink 2 50-plus yarders in the preseason, one being 59. The guy can kick it from all over the field. And if you're looking, the way I look at kickers, uh, I like somebody, first of all, that can make that 50-plus yarder, because that opens up so many more opportunities for the coach to come out and depend on this person and say, hey, it's 4th and 3 and we're 53 yards out. Let's go ahead and take that field goal. when some other teams may say, hey, I don't think we got it, or the percentages aren't there, let's go ahead and go for it. I think the Saints will absolutely go for it in a situation where they can get that 50-plus yarder. And also, you want not so much. I've never been the guy to take the kicker that kicks the most extra points in the league. That's chump change. Okay. The Harrison Butkers, the Mason Crosbys of the world, the I believe Matt Gays for the whatever. Not saying that they're bad. I'm just saying the real points you're going to get out of those field goals, and not just the short field goals, but the long field goals and the percentage conversion rate of those long field goals. And I think Will Lutz is somebody that can really do that for the Saints this year, who may or may not score every time they reach the red zone, score every time they get on that side of the field. It may get stalled a few times, and in comes Will Lutz. I think Will Lutz should be owned in most leagues if you're in a kicker league, and if not, then he should be one of the first off the free agency boards for somebody who's hurt or somebody who's struggling.
It's not bad. I like it. I mean,
Yeah.
the number one thing I always think about for kickers is the head coach. Is the head coach going to go for it on fourth down and risk turning the ball over, or is he going to kick that 50-yard field goal instead? The Mike Vrabels, the John Harbaughs of the league that are a little more old school, have really high Madden IQ, if you will, and are always playing it safe and basically, okay, let's kick this 45-yard field goal instead of going for it on 4th and 3, things like that. And I agree, yeah, not taking the cheap shot, guys with the most extra points, I think is good. And Will Lutz has plays in a dome. I think
Yep.
that's always a nice little add on for a kicker for sure. I like it.
Cool.
I think
all right. What do you got? Well, who's your second?
My second one. Now this does depend on health, but I still like Robert Tonyan. He tore his ACL last year. It's still a little soon, but Aaron Rodgers is still Aaron Rodgers, and I still don't see him having necessarily a number one wide receiver since Devontae Adams left. So if Tanya can come back healthy, he's still questionable for week 1, but he should be fine after that. If he can come back and be the tight end he was, I think that's going to be huge, because I bet that Rodgers will lean on him a little more than he used to. And he had a great year last year until he got injured.
Yeah, 26% owned right now on Yahoo. I really honestly think that you're right, that what's going on there in Green Bay is an absolute mystery on how the targets and touches are going to be distributed in the passing game. You've got Aaron Rodgers, who's been drafted as a top 10 quarterback universally, just because Aaron Rodgers. But you're looking at the receivers: Lazard, Romeo Doubs. You've got Cobb. You've got Christian Watson. You got Amari Rodgers. None of these guys are really attracting a high ADP. So Robert Tonyan kind of sneaks in there. He's not in the top 14, so he's not being drafted as a tight end 1. Very touchdown dependent, but if you can get somebody, if you're waiting to the end of your draft, or you've got somebody to pick up off free agents, you have a tight end injury, I think you're right. I think Tonyan could be one of the first ones off the board there, for sure. Or my next guy, Noah Fant. I was dumbfounded in the offseason when they made this Russell Wilson trade that Noah Fant was involved. I thought that obviously they liked Albert O in Denver. They thought he was a tremendous talent, but Noah Fant is a really good tight end, like really good tight end. I love his numbers over the past few seasons, and I know you're thinking, oh my gosh, the dang Seahawks offense just awful. DK Metcalf's ADP has absolutely plummeted. Tyler Lockett has dropped. Their third receiver is D. Eskridge right now, who was playing into the fourth quarter in preseason games. Noah Fant, it's been a while since they've had like a really, really good tight end that really, quantifies that passing game and sucks up the middle of the field. And I think Noah Fant could be that guy. He's a big body. Right now, his ownership percentage in Yahoo is, let's see, 24%. So he's probably outside that tight end 1 conversation. He's probably in the tight end 2 conversation. But I think if he can suck up some targets earlier in the year for somebody like Geno, who might be running from it for his life, might be struggling with completion percentage, you could see a few touchdowns go his way and somebody that could be steady along the year and one of those and end up in a tight end 1 situation.
I agree. No, that could definitely work, especially because since they named Geno the starter for now, Geno is probably one of the most boring quarterbacks to watch play football in the world.
Yeah.
So if he has, say, 4 people running a route, he's not reading the defense. He's reading who's the closest person to me, so that the ball only has to be in the air for like as short as possible. So the tight end is usually going to be that guy, or he just runs it for 1 yard and sluts. That's the Geno package. That's it.
Well, lucky Seattle. Obviously, they will be in the market for a quarterback next year. Quick question: would you rather have Brisket or Geno Smith?
Somebody in our league was trying to force Geno on me all week, and I had to really just, no means no kind of the situation, because I guess Brisket. Honestly, I'd rather have Brisket because
really
Brisket has, when his time is going to end. Okay, sure. Watson's coming back week with 12 or whatever it is. Okay, that's it. They're going to use you till then, unless barring some terrible injury. In Seattle, guarantee after about 2 to 3 weeks of the offense putting up a total of 8 points or 9 points throughout 3 games, they're going to get really bored of him and be like, Drew kind of sucks, but at least he'll throw a deep ball every once in a while.
God, so nasty.
But they're setting themselves up to kind of be, basically just, when you throw up in your mouth and you got to swallow it because you're in public, that's going to be their season all year. They're just going to be waiting for the draft, basically, and whoever the next big QB is that they'll be in line to get, basically.
Just swallow
it's
and
going to
puke.
be gross. Yeah.
Gross.
Yeah, it's going to be gross.
Yeah.
Maybe watch it.
Maybe Noah Fant can carve a little spot in that puke swallowing and a little niche. How about your next guy? Who do you got?
So I wrote him down yesterday, and I'm really regretting it because I'm kind of
because I even forgot. I just mentioned all the Green Bay receivers.
Yeah, I know. You didn't even mention it. And I went back and I was trying to find some blurbs. I was like, there have been any good blurbs? And it's like, man, I honestly at this point I'm just surprised Sammy Watkins is still in the league. I figure that at this point, like, ever since the first thing you think of Sammy Watkins is perfectly thrown ball and he drops it in Bill's uniform. Yeah. That was like his calling card was like in the end zone, drops it. So
yeah, and then mysteriously showing up every 3 weeks for the Ravens for a touchdown. That was, for like 2 or 3 years. I mean, that's what we've known for Sammy Watkins. That's it. Well, and then maybe a few Chiefs touchdowns here and there. But
that's what I was saying. I was like, okay, there's no wide receivers there. Randall Cobb's old as fuck. Everybody else has been there long enough to know whether they're going to be somebody or not. I was like, Sammy's new. Maybe he steps in. Maybe he finally shows up. And I'm like, nah, but after like an 8-year career, he's not going to finally show up now. He is who he is. And then I was going to go with another guy that I like, which actually just passed the 50% rostered mark, which is George Pickens, because he was at like 40% for a little while.
I will accept Pickens. I will accept Pickens in lieu of Sammy Watkins, who, if he hasn't done it yet, it is not going to do it. That's why I like Dobbs a lot in that offense, because I think you've got really honestly unownable fantasy guys for the last like almost half decade of Cobb and Sammy Watkins. I mean, Cobb literally was somebody that we drafted in the first 5 rounds in like the late 2000s. So
he used to be a 99 speed on Madden.
Yeah, I mean, this is somebody who we thought was like a really, really good receiver, back, maybe it was after the Donald Driver days, but right there, Javon Walker days, maybe, one of those, early on in Aaron Rodgers' career. And so this team has just not a lot of exciting receiver options. I think Dobbs can really fill that spot, or he's shown that he can fill in the
Mhm.
preseason. But yeah, no, I'll accept George Pickens. Tell me about George Pickens because I've looked at him on your team and I, question whether I should trade for him or invest in him. And I'm just a little scared with the receiving options that the Steelers have. Where does he fit in?
So that is a great question because the Steelers do have a lot of receiving options there. Um, but the biggest thing is when you see this guy play, he shows up, man. He is a big wide receiver. You see him like when like he caught just the other day, he caught a quick slant and the corner goes in to tackle him. The guy just like throws him off of him. The guy is, you know, catching the ball at high points, breaking in and out of his routes really well. He's spatial awareness to the sideline is great. He's not your typical rookie by any means. Now, yes, there's a lot of other mouths to feed there, but and now I don't wish ill intent on anybody, but I will just simply state historical facts that Claypool gets hurt a lot.
Yep.
And every time he catches the ball, he decides to throw himself to the ground like some sort of child in a tantrum. It's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. But hey, you know what? Whatever, do you. That's
Yep.
not good for his health, though.
Yep.
Deontay Johnson is really good, but he's also about 145 pounds. So too many hits, too many this and that. He caught the ball, he fell on his shoulder. I don't think anybody even hit him. He just fell on his shoulder and he's hurt. Not going to
Mhm.
last long playing a physical sport if you can't just, oh my God, my shoulder. Come on, man. Like, just, yeah. So I don't think Pickens has that much to worry about with how fragile these guys are. Like, honestly, like, just, I don't know. You got to realize you're going in to play a contact sport. So kind of, get ready for that. So I think he'll be fine
Yeah.
as
I
far as
mean,
that goes.
I think you and a lot of people agree because Pickens, like you said, I mean, he's one of the fastest growing, wide receivers in fantasy right now. I think that if he gets off to a hot start, catch a touchdown week one, he is somebody that's going to be universally owned. Even if he does that in week two or week three, there's just going to be so much because people love rookie receivers. In the age of Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, if he can get a hot start, I mean, we are talking the sky's the limit for George Pickens. So I think that was a great free agent pickup by you. And I don't know if he necessarily will be long on this list for very long. I think that as we near week one and as we move on from week one, the guys like Alec Pierce and Noah Fant, I mean, he just blows those people out of the water. But yeah, at this point, I think that he's definitely a must own for sure. I'm gonna go with a running back. Um, Unfortunately, we saw the news a couple days ago that Brian Robinson Jr. got shot twice out of the
Sure.
hospital now. I don't know if you saw the pictures.
Mm-hmm.
He's on crutches, but it looks like I don't want to say he was grazed, but definitely not life-threatening. He's up and on his feet, it's fine. Or maybe he's just one tough motherfucker. I don't know. He looked fine. Um, it's going to open up some spots. I don't know how long it takes somebody to come back from being shot. There's not a lot of data on that. Okay, so there's data on hamstrings and Achilles and ACLs and all that stuff. If you get shot, I can't tell you if you're going to be back in week 3, week 10, what. I don't know when he'll get cleared, but I do know week 1, which is what we're talking about. There's going to be spots open. There's going to be receiving work. There's going to be spots on the ground. Antonio Gibson has looked like hot garbage in the preseason. So he is the de facto number one. The de facto number two is somebody who has won fantasy weeks and has been kind of a fantasy darling for the last 3 or 4 years, and that's J.D. McKissick. JD McKissic is, to me, one of the better receiving options in the NFL right now, regardless of standing. The reason that people don't like him is because he's very inconsistent when it comes to workloads.
Mhm.
If they are getting down in a game, JD McKissic will score you a shit ton of points. If they are in a competitive game or trying to run the clock out, you won't see him on the field. That's just how it is. The James White role, the Naheem Hines role, that sort of stuff. It just doesn't work out. But last year, 397 yards, 2 touchdowns through the air. Doesn't seem like a lot, but it really got more consistent near the end there. And on the ground, he did have 212 yards and 2 touchdowns. So it's not like he's just catching the ball. He can also run the ball as well. And I think that he'll get a lot of work week one. So if you're looking for that desperation running back two for week one, and there's literally nobody else out there, I can almost guarantee JD McKissic's going to be available for you in a pinch. And he is right now, give me 1 second. He is 33% owned. So not as unpopular as you think. 33% isn't crazy, but I think that if you need help, I mean, there's often people go, my gosh, I don't know who to start. J.K. Dobbins is not going to start, or he's not going to play week one because they're really nursing this injury. If you need somebody, J.D. McKissic's there, and he will he could get you 10 points. You never know.
No, I like it. I do because,
Yeah.
like you were saying earlier, when you get into those later rounds, and usually in like regular leagues that are running back premium, like it's a desert out there for running backs. So it's always good to find somebody that you could at least depend anywhere from 5 to 10 points on, get some catches, especially if it's a PPR or something like that too. So I think
Hmm.
that'd be good, especially because I don't really expect the Washington Commanders to be leading in score wise in many games at all.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
but no, and I really like that. And to stay with the same team there, my next guy is actually Curtis Samuel, just because he's a very good possession wide receiver. They've got Scary Terry over there, but I think as much as great as Scary Terry has been, if you're a defense, that's the main guy you got to stop. Is make sure Scary Terry doesn't blow off the top, and that's really about it. So I expect Curtis Samuel to get a look to be a really good possession wide receiver for them this year.
Hmm. 4% owned. Didn't really get a lot of work last year, but I think that was due to injuries. But yeah, I mean, Curtis Samuel's like a Debo light. He can be lined up in the backfield.
Yeah.
As somebody that does work on the line of scrimmage, um, can go for those short passes, can get you rushing yards on end arounds and whatnot. I mean, he's a weapon to be used. And to be honest, when you're looking at, especially now that they've lost Robinson and you've got Antonio Gibson beat up, they could really use some offensive weapons help. They've got Jahan Dotson, who has kind of emerged in the preseason, and obviously Scary Terry. But you're right. I think Curtis Samuel at 4% is too low owned. I don't think he should be
Mhm.
like 20%, but he's uh, not owned enough for where he's at. So I think that's a fine pickup for a wide receiver three or wide receiver four stash.
Yeah.
Uh, okay, so I'm gonna go with this guy anyway. I know earlier today, um, Kenyon Drake got signed. I don't think Kenyon Drake comes in 2 weeks and takes the bulk of the carries week one away from J.K. Dobbins. I think that no matter what happens, rain or shine, nothing's going to stop Mike Davis, who's been in this offense all year, and has been a reliable runner, up the middle, Gus Edwards type, um, from getting a majority of carries. I think that he's going to get the lion's share of the work week one, no matter what. And I think that even if Kenyon Drake does play, Mike Davis still gets a lot of those carries. We've seen in the past them go with J.K. Dobbins, Mark Ingram, Gus Edwards. You've seen that trio. I know it's nightmare for fantasy, but we're talking players that can help you week one that are really low owned. I think Mike Davis can be that guy. Uh, that he's got his carry solidified. Maybe not week two, like I said. If you come out and Kenyon Drake has a great week one, you might see Mike Davis carries dwindle in week two, and you might not see the work that you wanted to going forward. But week one against the Jets in New York, I could see Mike Davis coming out there and get you a 10 spot. So definitely a running back two at 21% owned that you guys could take a look at.
I like it. Yeah, no,
Yep.
because I mean, especially since you said with the other injuries there, and just the way the offense is, they're a running offense. So
Mm-hmm.
you know he's going to get his carries. You know he's going to be a focus in the red zone. So you definitely have that chance to get a good 10, 15 points out of him, especially against the Jets. I think that's a great start for week one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
So
Last one for you.
la last one, I'm going to go with Cameron Brate, just because Brady, I can't remember the last time he played a season without Gronk,
Mm-hmm.
and he's still going to be looking at that tight end, especially in the red zones. So I definitely think Cameron Brate, you could do a lot worse at tight end than him because Brady's going to be coming back. If he's getting older, which he is, that means arm strength is slowing down, which means throwing to the outside is a lot more risky because you better, have your feet perfectly planted, drive that ball, or else it's a pick six. So I think he's going to find a lot more comfort in going to the middle of the field like he always has and going to his tight end.
Yeah, I think Brate's definitely. I know they got Kyle Rudolph there, but I think Brate's definitely the guy to own. I mean, he's been a touchdown machine in the past. When I'm seeing the Bucks in prime time, even prior when Gronk was on that team, I would count Brate as a touchdown machine. Get him as a touchdown anytime bet. He's somebody that he's really looked at in the red zone, had multiple
Mhm.
2 touchdown games as the go-to tight end. And if they ever run 2 tight end sets, which I think they will with Cal Rudolph, I think Cameron Brate's a good own. Do I think he's a top 14 guy? Probably not, but I think that in a situation where you're running in 2 tight end leagues or you're having some kind of injury, Brate can definitely be that filling guy. Okay, so we've done the offense. We don't need to take all the listeners' time on these defenders because obviously IDP is a thing that me and you are used to. We've done it for 20 years. Not a lot of other people do IDP, but
They're coming along
they're
slowly.
coming along slowly. I think in the next 10 years we'll see a lot more IDP leagues or people adopting this process because it's so damn fun to watch fantasy happen on both sides of the ball instead of just one side and having more knowledge about how fantasy defense works and
Mhm.
the intricacies of where value is contained on the defensive side. I'll start out
I agree.
with somebody who really helped me in my fantasy playoffs last year as an IDP guy. Outside linebacker for the San Francisco 49ers, Azeez Al-Shaair. Now, I left him last season. He didn't play the championship game for me because he had a bad elbow. But even with that bad elbow, in the second to last game that he played, he came out and I think had a forced fumble and killed it for me on the defensive side. He's a tough guy, man, and he's going to get out there and work it. And I know the guy to own on that defensive front seven is going to be not Aziz Al-Shaair, Fred Warner and Nick
Mhm.
Bosa. But Azeez Al-Shaair is a dependable guy. I think there was like 4+ weeks in a row before he went down where he got 10+ points on a 1 point tackle scale. I mean, he's just a really solid outside linebacker. I would not be surprised if he got you 10 points a week early on, especially week one, going against Chicago and Justin Fields there. So yeah, Azeez Al-Shaair is my first. He is 3% owned currently, so almost next to nothing. Who do you got with your first defensive guy?
I was just going to say on that. I know since you were saying Fred Warner and Nick Bosa are kind of the main guys down on that defense. You have to realize too is like you're just saying about realizing how defenses work for fantasy. Nick Bosa's in front of him, so Nick Bosa, instead of linemen, saying, "Okay, I'm going to chip Bosa and go up to the second level for a block," two guys on Bosa, because or else
Yeah.
he's going to blow up the whole play, which leaves who? Aziz Al-Shaair wide open to make the play. And so
Mm.
that is huge. So there's little things like that you got to think about. So the first guy on my list is Alex Hightower.
So
So
I
oh, go
don't want
ahead.
to correct you. I think it's Highsmith.
Oh, I think you're right. Yeah, it's Highsmith.
Highsmith.
We used
Yep.
to have another guy, Hightower. Yeah,
Yep.
Highsmith. So
Mhm.
he is the opposite outside linebacker to TJ Watt. And
Gotcha.
watching him last year, I mean, he got a decent amount of sacks himself, but like I'm almost every single play that TJ Watt made, it was like, like boom, boom out. Highsmith was like right there.
Yep.
And Watt got the sack stat, but Highsmith was like right there. So I really think that this year, after getting Defensive Player of the Year for Watt, he's going to get a lot more attention, a lot more chip blocks, a lot more double teams, and that's going to leave Highsmith for a really good chunk of sacks and other plays to make.
Cool. Yeah, I know. I was wondering about that. That linebacking core looks a little bit different this year with Miles Jack, Highsmith,
Oh yeah, I
TJ
like
Watt.
Miles Jack.
Yeah.
Miles Jack he can hit. He can
Yeah.
hit.
And
Yeah.
I know that would be another one that's lower owned, but I think he might be a little bit higher owned. But yeah, Highsmith's 1% owned. Pretty much free in every draft. You can get him in the last pick. And yeah, if he's healthy, definitely can come in and make some plays. I've got a DB for those of you who look for a DB, L'Jarius Sneed, for the Chiefs. Now, the reason that Chiefs DBs are so valuable is for tackles. I mean, the guy scored over 103 points last year, had uh, let's see, 96 or 80, 76 tackles last year, only a sack and two picks. But for somebody that's coming in that plays hybrid safety and corner, um, he can get some points for you. The Chiefs are going to be playing in a lot of. Every time I think of the Chiefs and I think of games, I think of that Bills game from last year where there's just an absolute shootout where every game was a pass, or every play was a pass. L'Jarius Sneed can be in on that. I think that you could do way worse at DB. 3% owned, somebody that you could sneak in there and should be, at pretty high on people's DB list. I'm surprised he's not owned in our league.
I agree. No,
Yep.
it's definitely a good pick. Like you said, a guy that you can count. If you can count on your DB for tackles, at least it's just a
Hmm.
lot more of a sure bet.
Yep.
My next guy I got is a middle linebacker, Christian Kirksey for the Houston Texans.
Okay.
I like watching him play. He flies to the ball well. He's sideline to sideline kind of linebacker, and he's middle linebacker. So it's all set up for him in a 4-3 to make the play. It really is. So I
True.
think you could do a lot worse than that, just because everything's in front of him to make the play. So he just needs to go out and do it. And from what I saw last year, he did a pretty good job.
And like earlier on in the year, I kind of expected Christian Harris to take over that job and Christian Kirksey go to the back of the line. But Christian Kirksey was so solid last year and had a really solid preseason. I am not giving up on Christian Harris getting sneaking in a spot on this defense. And I really think he's
Mm-hmm.
the future of the Texans. But Christian Kirksey is super reliable at that middle
Mm-hmm.
linebacker position and has become just a cornerstone veteran that is going to provide points on probably a defense that's going to struggle throughout the year, which is the Texans. I got Quincy Williams, which is kind of a I don't want to say popular. He's the strong side linebacker and CJ Mosley, and you got Quan Alexander on the other side. So they're kind of piecing together this Jets
Mm-hmm.
defense. But Quincy Williams is in his third year. He had a decent year last year. Had over 100 tackles, so 110 tackles. Had, 3 forced fumbles, 2 sacks. I mean, he made some plays. So he started out with Jacksonville, and then he came over uh, to the Jets this last year. Last year got 124 points, which is pretty decent for for a linebacker. 10 tackles for loss. He's looking at like somebody who's going to score between 7 and 10 points a week. And like I said, he's looking pretty popular from that outside spot. If he's somebody that you know did not mature in his first or second year and then gets a new landscape and comes out and can be a 100+ point linebacker every single year, I could see him being an IDP staple for years and years to come. He's somebody that in the preseason I have been close to picking up multiple times. He's been on my watch list. I decided to go with more established, more people like Isaiah Simmons and stuff like that, more than him. But if ever I got an injury or ever I need somebody in a pinch, Quincy Williams definitely would be my guy. I think he's my number one person that I would take if I needed an IDP. 9% owned on Yahoo.
Yeah, I mean, I like it. I mean, if he left recently in the Urban Meyer uh, head coaching part of the Jaguars, you
Yeah,
can't really put that on him. There are a
I think
lot
it
of
was
really
the
good players that left during that time.
yeah.
Uh, and so that, you could do a lot worse than that because he's just been an awful coach. So to see him go to the Jets and do well, that's pretty good.
Well, I think it was prior. So
Oh, was it prior? Okay.
he came in 2021. So last year was his first full year. So he only played 11 games in his rookie year and 7 games in the year following. So the Jaguars didn't really want to play him all that much, and he didn't really do anything. Came over to the Jets, got in all 16 games, and scored, over 124 points. That's his first full year as a full-time starter. He's exciting, man. I think he could be somebody that could make some plays this year for sure.
I like it.
Hmm.
I'm gonna bag my next two guys in the same position just because they're very similar. I got Chuck Clark and Devin McCourty.
Okay.
Old school safeties that have kind of been year in, year out, don't get injured very much, make a decent amount of tackles, will get you, 4 to 10 points a week. It's not going to be great, but they're consistent. They're always on the field. They're not going to lose their job. They make tackles because they're safeties, and Devin's a free roaming safety, which gives them a little bit more chance for interceptions, turnovers,
Yeah.
such as that. But they're just both, I guess, guys you can count on because for DBs, you just got to make sure you don't get a goose egg.
Right. And they're not going to be the like first people off the board in an IDP league. Uh, but it just seems like every year that I've played IDP that Chuck Clark has been in the league, he's been like one of the first people off free agents because he does come in and he is involved in plays every single time you watch the Ravens in prime time. They have some kind of like Chuck Clark reference where they go
Mhm.
in, you get the thing on the screen where it tells you, where he went to school and all this sort of stuff, and they talk about Chuck Clark and how he's all over the field. Again, he's not going to be the flashy 8 interception, a bunch of forced fumble kind of guy, but he is a solid tackle guy and a cornerstone of that Ravens defense for sure. So I like those two guys for sure. I'm going to go in the same direction. You could have just included Eddie Jackson in that conversation as well.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, definitely.
So they drafted Jaquan Brisker with their second round pick. So Jaquan Brisker was the second safety off the board in this year's draft. He's like a future safety. I drafted him in a couple of our drafts, IDP drafts. I His injuries kind of worry me. So, but I think he's going to start week 1. Anyway, the reason I'm saying that is because they've moved Eddie to free safety from strong
Oh,
safety,
nice.
giving him a little bit more freedom on that side of the ball, and a little bit more room to defend the pass
Hmm.
and make plays in the air instead of just being the guy that stuffs the box. So we'll see how he does right with that. He's 2% owned. But in years past, Eddie Jackson's been a top 10 DB off the board in IDP drafts. He's been somebody that we've really depended on in all of my IDP leagues. I know last year him scoring 74 points is unacceptable and really not somebody that you want to depend on from week to week. But if you see any Eddie Jackson that you saw prior to last year, then you're seeing an Eddie Jackson that can be really dependable in that IDP roles, and especially at 2%. Again, you can get him for free in most spots. So
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a really good value pick because if he comes back to anything close to what he was, that'd be huge for your defense, especially like you said, for basically free, end of the draft, free agent pickup, whatever it may be.
yep, give me one more guy.
One more, last one is going to be Xavier Howard.
Hmm.
Now I know corners can be a little risky, but the guy's got talent, and I think that a year removed from not being the biggest, talked about defensive player is really good for him. Just
Right.
because then quarterbacks will think, oh, I could get this ball around him. Ah, shit, pick six. So
Hmm.
like, we've seen him make plays. The guy, has the hands to make the interceptions. He got the moves to find the end zone. He's got amazing coverage skills. So I think you could do a lot worse. And yeah, usually you can kind of figure out within a couple weeks what kind of year he's going to have, whether it's going to be a down year like Eddie's last year, or it's going to be another almost defensive player of the year for him. Because 2 years ago he was pretty amazing.
I mean, last year he was pretty amazing. So
He was still pretty.
I think that the way that Miami disguises Xavier Howard is the reason that he's such a good IDP, because you look at somebody like Jalen Ramsey, who just doesn't get thrown at, and you go, this just isn't really an IDP solution. Real life, great player, doesn't
Mm-hmm.
get thrown at, doesn't get a lot of pass deflections, doesn't get a lot of action just because he's got people covered up so well. I think Xavier Howard's the same way, but the way Miami disguises him lets him get those 5 interceptions that he had last year. They
Mm-hmm.
can put him in so he has that sack. 15 pass deflections is really, really good for a corner. That's almost one a game. At 1.5 points in our league, that's amazing. 2 fumbles forced, 2 fumble recoveries, and 2 defensive touchdowns last year. I mean, 132 points. He was one of the better corners. Only 13% owns, which is great, and probably not owned just for the reason that we just talked about. It's because most teams are afraid to throw his way. So
Mm-hmm.
really what you're depending on is that talent combined with the way that Miami can use him in different situations and line him up against maybe not the best receivers, time and time again, and not make it predictable, really can make him an IDP asset for sure. So that's a good pick.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, my last
You
one's
got
Drew Tranquil. Okay,
Tranquil.
so I don't know if you remember Kenneth Murray Jr., who was drafted in the
Mm-hmm.
first round a few years back, and we were all big on Kenneth Murray Jr. I believe he's coming out of A&M, I think, and how he was
Mm-hmm.
going to be like future middle linebacker, uh, you know, Junior Seau, Roquan Smith type guy in the middle, and he really hasn't shown up. He's really been kind of somebody who's struggled with injuries, and when he's been on the field has been less than productive. Drew Tranquil is playing in that position. Kenneth Murray's going to be healthy for week 1, so they're going to share that inside linebacker spot. But Drew Tranquil has been really productive in that spot, and I think that he has kind of a cult following, the Trank following. Um, he's been there all preseason. We'll see if he's 100% healthy. But if given a bigger opportunity, I think Drew Tranquil can be somebody who leads the league in tackles. Obviously, you're not seeing it right now. Only 71 points last year in a limited amount of work, 1.5 sacks. Didn't really have anything outside of the tackles for loss and only had 76 combined tackles, 1% owned. So this is somebody that I'm really like, if you see Drew Tranquil do well, yeah, this is something that I came up with out of the back of my brain. It's a really high odd lottery ticket that I'm not, saying go out and get Drew Tranquil. But if you want to take a risk and you want somebody with really high upside, somebody that can that may be able to make you look like somebody really smart in the IDP realm. Drew Tranquil is your guy. I think that he has the talent to be a top 10 linebacker. But I'm also saying that he could be a free agent throughout the year. So
It's, take it with a grain of salt.
take it with a grain of salt. Yes, this is a high risk, high reward type player, but I really like Drew Tranquil. I watch him weekly throughout the preseason, hoping that he would make some notes and say the middle linebacker, inside linebacker position is mine, Kenneth Murray. He didn't quite do that, but I still believe in him as somebody that can carry your IDP.
I like it because I mean he's got a lot of great players around him on defense that
Yeah,
whether it be recovering a fumble that somebody else caused that or getting a sack because Derwin James has great coverage in the defensive backfield, or because Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack are taking extra blockers on, so it leaves you open.
right.
There's a lot of things that can go really well for him. He is set up for success. He's got a lot of great players around him with great experience that he could have a great year this year. I like that.
Yeah, the only thing really in his way of being like a star linebacker is Kenneth Murray. And if Kenneth Murray shows up and it's Kenneth Murray that they drafted in the first round a few years ago, then disregard everything I just said and insert Kenneth Murray Jr. in that because
Sometimes that comes down to because they're playing a 3-4. Sometimes that comes down to defensive scheming. So if the defensive because one of them is basically going to be like the strong safety and one of them is going to be the free roaming safety. So if
Mhm.
the middle one has quarterback duties and the other one is just spying, or like the middle one of them is going to have the running back and the other one's just going to be spying. You want the guy that's spying and hopefully he's instincts enough to be able to just make every play and go.
Right.
But if he's the guy that's covering the running back, his points are going to go down a lot. So that's going to be the difference between Kenneth Murray or Drew Tranquil, one of them being better or not, basically.
Yeah. And Kenneth Murray isn't 100%. Like he came off PUP, but he's not 100% to make week one. So maybe he's eased back in. But I think he's got the talent. Kenneth Murray has the talent or did have the talent and the pedigree to be like a top IDP guy. I think Drew Tranquil is there right now. And if in the situation he's in, can help you week one get just like blow up and get that 10 to 15 points. And you're like, wow, you got 10 solo tackles, 5 assists, and a forced fumble. Like, I think Drew Tranquil can be that guy. We're just gonna have to see how it shakes out. I'm excited to watch the San Diego defense, and I'm going to be watching them close because I think there's a lot of stars there with Derwin James and Mack and the free safety just got picked up in our league.
JC Jackson.
Well, there's
Oh
JC
no, Nasir Adderley.
Adderley. Yeah, Adderley. I think there's a lot of talent there, a lot of IDP talent to watch for sure.
There is, and just remember, they're in LA now.
Yep, absolutely.
Called them San Diego's off.
Oh, did I?
But they do have a lot of talent on defense, and honestly, I think they're set up to play with the lead basically because if the other offense has to pass the ball and you've got Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack going after him with Nasir Adderley, Derwin James, and JC Jackson covering the defensive backfield, they're gonna have a good time.
Yeah, no, that's a fun team to watch, fun division to watch for sure.
Oh yeah.
All right, last thing before we let you guys go. I know this has been a long podcast. Thanks for sticking with us. Last thing before we let you go, sleeper of the year, Scott. Okay, sleeper of the year, because next week we're going to come out. We're going to give predictions for some of the games. So this is your chance to give me the sleeper of the year, somebody that maybe no one else likes but you, that you think is going to have a great year.
I think Desmond Ritter is going to be great.
Desmond
I think
Ritter.
he's going to. Yeah, I think he's going to do really well. I think the Falcons have one of the worst offensive lines in the league. I think that Mariota's bones are made of glass. I think he hasn't been starting for a while for a good reason because he's not a good quarterback, and he'll get crunched about 35 times in the first 3 weeks, and then they'll be like, "Wow, we need somebody that's just not going to sit there and get toppled over like a Jenga tower." So
Yeah.
they'll end up putting Desmond Ritter in there because he can move around a little bit more, make some more plays with his feet, things like that. I think they'll end up being pretty happy with that, especially over Mariota. That's you might as well start Baker. That's
Yeah,
terrible.
I didn't mind Ritter in the preseason. I think that if Ritter can be successful with that team, a Drake London, Cordell Patterson
Kyle
team,
Pitts.
Kyle Pitts, you're right, Kyle Pitts, then he can be successful going forward, and then they can build around him. That could be a good pick. Do I 100% agree with you? No, not so much, because I think that, like I just said, there's just not enough there for Desmond Ritter to come in and be super successful. And in the preseason, he did at times show that he's a little bit reckless with the ball. I think there was one game where he turned the ball over a couple times, but
Mm-hmm.
um, I won't poke the bear and say you dropped him, because you did drop him. Because I know that if you even get the inkling of Desmond Ritter getting a start or Mariota doing bad, you'll be the first to the
Well,
waiver wire to pick him
do
back
you
up.
expect Mariota to do well?
Um,
That's the real question. Do you expect Mariota to do well? And
Mariota had the best passer rating for any quarterback in the preseason. I know that's useless information, but um, I don't. Do I expect him to do well? Like quarterback one? No.
do you expect him to still be a starter, say midway through the season? See
I
that the pause is said enough. That's all. Like, ooh, I don't know. Like, wait, do I have to put money on it? No. All
I'll
right.
be surprised if he's. I'll be surprised if he starts every game. I'll say that. I'll be surprised if he starts every game. But
Yeah,
I don't think that necessarily, if they go 1-7, that they're going to be like Ritter. I don't know. Maybe you're right. They might. I don't know.
that's usually the
Um,
first thing they do.
yeah,
Change the quarterback.
yeah, no,
So
uh, I got Sam Howell,
okay,
75-1 for rookie of the year. Um, he like
not
throw
bad.
$20, you win $1,500. Sam Howell had a really good preseason. I really liked, he played at North Carolina. He really fell in the draft, and he fell with the Commanders. And I thought that pick, I didn't really think much of it at the time. I knew they had gone Wentz and they had Taylor Heineke, and Sam Howell's third string. Okay, but he had a really, really good preseason. I think that if and when Wentz struggles, like I'm not going to bet against Wentz again this
Win.
season.
I'll bet it. I'll bet against him. He,
I
he's he's another guy that should not be a starting quarterback. He is a steward in place of whoever the successor is. That's all he is.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'll. Uh, the end of last year was brutal. Like the way they lost out to the Jacksonville Jaguars, who were like one of the worst defenses, and the way he like couldn't get it done against that team was brutal. And you've listened to me. I'm always one. How did you finish last year? Because it's going to be a continuance in how you play this year. If you finished hot, you're probably going to start hot this year. If you finished shitty last year, you're probably going to start shitty this year. And Wins finished shitty. So but again, he made me look like a fool last year, because a lot of times he was a pretty good, you know, pretty good option at quarterback. I think he ended up as quarterback 10. But if there's somebody to see time and they're not in a competitive state, say they're like in the same situation we just talked about with the Falcons, they're 1-7.
Mm-hmm.
I think they like to turn to Sam Howell to see what he can do rather than Taylor Heineke. Even though Taylor Heineke might be the better quarterback right now, or the quarterback that they might the best quarterback to win games if
Mm-hmm.
they were in a competitive mood. Like if Wentz got hurt, don't get me wrong, I would rather see Taylor Heineke early on in the season. But if they're in a losing situation where they're like throwing their arms up and giving up on the season, I think you might see Sam Howell, and I think he's set up to succeed in that offense. Um, and really, honestly, I like him. If he is the starting quarterback for the Commanders next year, I like Sam Howell to be a good quarterback going forward.
I could see that because I don't expect Carson Wentz to finish the first half of the season, whether it be from play or injury or mental stability, whatever it may be. So, and they already know what they have in Heineke, so they could definitely be more curious in seeing what Hal can bring to the table after having a good preseason.
Yeah.
Because I think Heineke, they pretty much established he's a mid-level backup quarterback.
I think it's a pretty good backup. He beat Brady a few years ago. Didn't he beat Brady in the playoffs? I think he's
No, when the Commanders saw Brady in the playoffs, Brady won. The game before when Chase Young was running off field going, I want Brady, and then Brady was like, all right, here I am, bitch, and beat him. Yeah, they beat him.
maybe. I don't know.
I think they may have beat him in like the end of the regular season. Like it didn't
Yeah,
matter
that
for the
might have been it.
Buccaneers or something, and the Commanders were like, this is our season, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that might have been. I just remember it's like, whoa, he beat Brady. Heineke beat Brady,
yeah,
but yeah, that might have been it.
yeah.
But yeah, no, he's decent. I think he deserves to be in the NFL. I just don't agree that he's the future of any team. So,
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So I could see Howell getting some play. I like it.
yep, yep. All right, Scott. Hey, it was great talking to you, man. I know it's more than a week away until we get to see some live football, but hey, we're getting warmed up a little bit. I'll see you next Tuesday. We'll have another one of these every Tuesday until February. How does that sound?
That sounds great. I'm ready for some real football, sir. I've been waiting all year for it.
Hell yeah, hell yeah. All right, guys. Well, thanks for listening, and we will see you guys next week, same time, same place. See ya.